that anyway. So yeah, let's see.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this live stream. My name is Martin. I am an Inkscape developer, developing features and fixes for everyday Inkscape users, and I am hosting this feature exclusive. We're just going to have a chat about all of the new things that are available in Inkscape 1.2. Please do give me a comment in the chat. I'm interested to make sure this stream is functioning. And then after I've got a confirmation, we're going to introduce our guests for today. Hello. Hey, Mark. Hey, Mohammed and Jorgen and Javier Garzon. If you can give me a shout out to say whether the audio is functioning. Stream works. Excellent, excellent. I have my confirmation. So, may I introduce to you, on the top is Tim. He's one of the Inkscape contributors who is graphically inclined. He does most of his work with the vectors team. In the middle, we have Chris. He is a media expert, animator, and graphic designer. He's done a lot of the work helping me design some of the assets that I use on my channel. And finally, at the bottom is me, who I've already announced. I have a chat up, but I don't have the nice little chat thing yet going on. And what you can see here is the Inkscape window. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the guests first, and then chat, and we're going to talk about each of the new features in Inkscape. And hopefully we'll get a little experimentation and see what's going to be happening in 1.2. So let's start off with Chris. Chris, you wanted to talk about the export dialog.
Yeah, actually, I was going to use it as kind of a two-pronged sort of thing to also discuss the Pages tool, because one of the really one of the most anticipated features of the upcoming release is the Pages tool and how that can export then multiple pages.
That's naughty of you to want to do both of those things, but okay, I'll let you do. How about we start with Pages, and then we'll
Well,
move on to
yeah,
export.
okay. We could start with the export dialog. It's fine. I just wanted to talk about the Pages tool.
No, do what you want.
Nobody else volunteered to talk
So
about
you,
the Pages tool. I mean,
well, there's only so many slots on the video chat. So first of all, what do you want me to do? So you want to talk about the export dialog?
yeah, yeah. So I guess probably the most handy thing about the export dialog now is the fact that, well, aside from the fact that you can choose what to export now, you can choose a PNG or a JPEG right out of the menu.
That's down here.
But you,
Oh,
but for me, like,
this is something that I
huh?
should warn the stream. So you guys can't see pop-ups, which is a limitation of the operating system. Because so whenever I go to a file menu or a drop down,
Uh,
you're gonna have to use your imaginations, and then I can describe what's in the drop down if you like.
okay. Well, can the live stream people see it, or
No, no,
is
no,
it just
no,
us?
no. It's just it's a fixed limitation of the Linux operating system about like how it shares
Uh,
Windows. Don't worry about it. So there's a drop down that I'm pressing, and inside of
okay.
it is Inkscape SVG, portable network graphics, plain SVG, JPEG, optimized PNG, portable document format PDF, TIFF, and WebP.
And the SVG option is actually what I've been using the most lately, because when I export a bunch of different graphics on the page, um, like if you draw, a bunch of shapes, just a bunch of,
Yep.
yeah, that's fine, and you select all of them,
Yep.
and you can think of these as groups of graphics too, like icons and whatever.
I see. Yeah.
However many groups that you have there, you can pretend these are groups.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, if you switch to the batch export tab.
So we go to batch. So so
Yeah.
so we used to be able to do batch exporting, but it was just a checkbox. So that checkbox
Yeah.
is now an entire tab with its own functionality
And previews, I must say. Like the
and
previews are
previews.
excellent. It shows you what you're going to get. You can also tick the, it's hard to see, the export only the selected items as well. So even if it's over a background, which is really handy for me, especially when doing website stuff, because
Yeah,
usually there's a background that I'm working over.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But I don't want to export bits of the background. I just want to export the icons and use them directly on the page
Right.
uh, with my website design. So it just saves so much time. Um, that I think there are lots of people on the forums who are also asking, like, how do I export this one specific thing to an SVG? And the old process was like, you open up a new file, a new Inkscape
Copy and paste
file.
it.
You Yeah, you copy paste it, and then you resize to content, and then you save.
Yeah.
And
So,
I mean, that works fine, but like when you're dealing with 100 icons,
yeah.
you, you're just going to
So
be sitting there forever doing
the
that. So
the
this saves a lot of time.
yeah, no, so the one thing I will note, so part of the reason why I wanted to get a programmer and also designers in the same room is just to talk about some of the difficulties it actually is to make some of these features. So one of the struggles that I had when doing this feature or finishing it, because it was a Google Summer of Code project, was that in order to be able to separate out objects, you have to do all of the like copy and pasting and transformations internally, right? Because you have to actually have to create a new document in memory. Don't show it to the user, just internally. But that new document has to contain, gradients and live path effects, and it has to have the same transformation, the same units, all of these kinds of things. And then you have to be like, oh, but we need sometimes to be able to like the selected objects, and sometimes it's like anything that was in that square, right? So there's all sorts of like, oh, can you just select everything that's in that square, and then just like take all those SVG objects? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the programmer's perspective. It was hard. So
Yes,
I'm happy to
and
hear.
it is just a thing of beauty now. I mean, it is so easy to use, and the previews make sure that you can actually see what you're exporting as well. So if you don't see the transparent background behind your icons, then you remember that you need to check the box that says only export what I have selected.
Yeah.
So all those features are just, it's so nice. It's a substantial quality of life improvement for those of us who use Inkscape for design work.
Right. So it's not just the PNG, which is what we were doing before, but it's also the
No,
fact
that's
that you can
true.
do all of the vector stuff, like the fact that you can do a PDF export of like each of these
Yeah.
objects. A bit of flexibility there. So I will add one of the features that isn't obvious here is that if you're an extension author and you're writing a formatter, like say you're writing a CNC machine piece of software and you want it to be available in this dialog, you can just add that to the what's known as the INX definition file. There's a special option that you add in, and your export format will appear here.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it's useful if you want to expand Inkscape so that it's exporting to whatever. The one thing I'll say
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that obviously there are two formats available. There's raster and then there's vector. The special option is for vector because raster formats are always available here. They're on by default
yeah.
because this is the only place that you can use them. So do you want to quickly go over like what are all these tabs going on and
Yeah, I'm trying to. Okay. You mean like the selection layers and pages,
yeah, so
or
for instance single image and batch export. Let's start at
okay,
the top.
sure. I just highlighted batch export because it's the most obviously useful thing
It's the
ever.
thing you're excited about, isn't it?
For doing
Which
lots
is
of
fair.
things. It's like the power tool version of the export dialog. But yeah, single image works as before. It has a nice preview now though, and also you can preview the pages, right? So if you use your page tool to make more pages,
Yep.
there are little arrows on the export dialog here. It says first page, I think by default, uh, right above the thumbnail
Yep. So you can do
uh,
page
preview.
one,
Yeah, page two
page
exactly.
two, page three, page four. Yeah, you can quickly go through it.
Yeah. And then when you export to PDF, for example, then your pages get put in as pages, which is the other thing that was a pain in the butt with using Inkscape before to do media,
Right.
like
So the thing I will say
flyers
is
and things.
that there's only always one page if you use the export. That's how it's designed. So if you do batch export and you
Oh,
do pages, you can see the pages here. Each of those will be a single PDF file, right? And the same thing if you're doing single image PDF, right? It'll only be one page. The way you get multiple pages in a PDF is you actually do save as or save as copy,
okay.
and then the PDF in there will save multiple pages.
What what's the reasoning behind only saving one page? Oh, because the tab says page, I guess. Is
The
that
tabs is
why?
page, but also it's a question of what is the export doing. Like if you wanted to just save all of the pages, then then save as is the correct thing, right? It's contextually all of the pages.
I see. For me, I mean, I've always really disagreed with the save as a
Oh,
PDF.
as an export, yeah. I mean
Yes,
the
I
save
very
as
much disagree.
copy is definitely the thing that I do a lot for PDFs. Now, it might be
Yeah.
that we want to end up with a situation where, for instance, in a future feature where you press document,
Mm.
document could quite easily be multiple pages, or page could have like an extra checkbox that's like all paid pages, or maybe a
Yeah, I
selection of
would
them.
say I would, or I wouldn't hold back any options from the export dialog,
Yeah,
especially since
these are
this is
not.
where people are going to be looking for it now.
Yeah, these are not necessarily held back. These are more like imagine it was easier to do it this way and not to like spend weeks writing new stuff.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, there's
I
some parts of it are
I
going to
should
be
say that
in progress.
yeah, whatever I say about the dialogue is not to imply that not enough work was done because
Oh yeah,
I know
yeah, yeah.
better.
No, no, no.
I've
I
seen
know, and
I've seen the
I
blood,
don't mean to
sweat,
be
and
like, oh,
tears that
defensively. Oh, how dare you criticize? No, it's a legitimate user experience critique. I just don't know like where it would go, right? So like whether
yeah,
it would
we'll
be in
have
batch
to
export pages.
honestly we need to hit it with the UX hammer as
Yeah,
well,
yeah. I mean, this
and
was
get more people involved than just you and me.
this was a
And
fix
yeah,
up, and I've got to say because the original design and the original code from the Google Summer of Code project. If I was designing this DPI control and this suffix control in the batch exporter would not be here like this. I
okay.
don't like that the way that it's laid out. I think that that's not a great way of doing this particular type of like multiple export types.
Hmm.
But I kind of just progressed it along the way that it was going.
Honestly, the work that has been done on it is just amazing, and it I mean it may not be exactly where we all want it to be, but it's certainly much better than it was. Like just 1,000% better
Yeah,
than it was before.
that has got to be
And I'm
Inkscape's
very happy.
motto. It's not exactly where we'd like it to be, but it's getting better,
No software is ever at the perfect
right?
point.
One of the things that I did more recently is when you use the export dialog in the previous versions of Inkscape, it would save the full path to wherever the export was, so it could remember it. This was leaking private information because it could tell a potential attacker about what directories you had on your computer, what type of computer you had. Now, what it does is it attempts to strip those out, so that if you're, for instance, exporting a PNG into the same directory as the where the SVG is saved, then the only thing that's saved into the SVG is the actual end PNG name and nothing else.
Yeah.
It's just a little security fix. We've been looking at that bug for a while. I figured it was important to get it done in this particular cycle.
Yeah. Well, saving relative file paths by default is also a good idea.
Yeah,
It's very rare that you would ever want to save an absolute file path
Well,
um,
I mean, I actually found a bug.
for graphics anyway. I mean, you move, or if you do design work, you move folders around constantly,
So
right?
I found a
There's
bug.
no way around it.
It's true, yeah. So yeah, and exactly for that. It's not just security; it's also for that convenience. So I found a bug
Yeah.
where somebody who did this graphic, they use a Windows machine. I know that because their file leaked their file path.
Oh no.
But because I'm on a Linux machine, the d:/user blah blah blah, all of that was considered by Inkscape to be the file name. So like the default PNG export was d:// stuff, which is
Yeah.
not correct, I would say. Okay, so do you want anything to talk about anything else about this dialogue before we move on, Chris?
It might be worth mentioning that it can do WebP,
Yep.
which is an up and coming web format that you probably should be saving in instead of JPEG.
Oh yeah.
If you want, the best quality with the same kind of compression advantages. Um, so I just find it cool that Inkscape already supports it, and thank you, Doc, for making it support
Yeah,
it.
these are Python extensions that actually do this. So the formats that it's possible to support are all based on is it ImageMagick or no? It's Python Image Library PIL.
Okay.
So whatever things that is compiled to support, we could theoretically create an INX file and export to. So
Yes.
WebP, JPEG, and TIFF were the ones that I targeted because I figured those were the ones that people would want the most. And
Yep. I think that's a perfectly good assumption.
yeah, and then I added OptiPNG, which is a separate tool. It will not appear unless you have OptiPNG installed on your computer. I think the Mac and Windows versions actually come with OptiPNG installed with them. Um,
Okay.
but if they don't, just install it. It should find it. Okay, Tim, you
Hello.
sir would like to talk about the color palette?
Yeah, first of all, in chat, I think it's Jurgen mentioned that it might be possible to take a screenshot of the menus and then drag that screenshot into the Inkscape document, just so that
Oh yeah,
the guys watching can view that.
let's do a little
And
test of that.
someone else, I'm not going to attempt the name because it's in French, uh, has a question. They said, on the export front, has the path leak issue been merged for 1.2? I'm not sure what they mean there.
Yeah, so we're only talking about stuff that is in 1.2. We're not talking about 1.1 or 1.3. So I won't. Well, nothing has happened in 1.3 yet, but I'm going to not talk about anything that is theoretical in the future.
I think they were just asking about whether the path security leak was going to be in 1.2, and the answer is yes. That is
Yeah,
what it's for.
it's there
That makes,
already, and
yeah.
I will say that the beta is available. Was available. I must apologize. I'm going to apologize directly to camera. I personally deleted the Windows 64-bit downloads this morning, trying to fix a website problem.
You're welcome.
You're, you're welcome. If that mistake had not had happened, the beta would be available to you right now. But instead, what we're going to do, you're going to have to wait for Mark to re-upload them. I
No,
try.
just switch to Linux, man.
Oh, Mac,
Just
because the Mac one's still
reinstall.
there.
Get rid of Windows and install Linux, and then you'll be fine.
So I'll tell you
That's
what
not
happened,
too bad.
Chris. What happened was is that I saw all of the file names for the new uploads, and every single resource name in the website admin panel had exactly the same name. And Mark had said that he'd failed to upload it once, like it had not gone through. So Lizard Brain thought, oh, he's accidentally uploaded it twice.
Yeah.
Because what I didn't see was that there was a difference between x64 and I think it's x86, which is
Yes.
the 32-bit version. So I'm like, oh, just delete those three ones. Okay, they're gone now. And then I'm like, Oh. It wouldn't have been so bad if I'd have deleted the 32-bit ones. But the fact that I deleted the 64-bit
It's,
Windows release, which is the
it's
popular
true.
one, it means I'm just sitting
Yeah,
there
yeah.
going, oh my god.
Is there still a version of Windows 10 that runs on 32-bit processors?
I don't know. I don't know, honestly.
Hmm.
Shout out to Roland and Danielle, or Danelle, and Informatique ou Liberties, and Zed. Sorry if your name is Z. Okay, so Tim, we've distracted you from talking about the color palette. Go on.
No, 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 no. It's important stuff, especially when you make mistakes.
They need to be pointed out. It's true.
um, so first of all, Martin, can you take a screenshot of the hamburger menu in the color pattern palette at the bottom? So that's what we're talking about at the moment, is the color palette at the bottom of the screen.
So I cannot. The print screen. Oh wait. Let's see if I was pressing the right key.
Just a screenshot. Can you just drag that?
No, it doesn't. It's not. It's not doing anything while the menu is open. I think this is a limitation of.
What about if you share your desktop rather than the actual window?
Well, let's have a look. So let's see window. Window. Okay, so the controls in OBS specify a window.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I can't even screenshot it. That is ridiculously convoluted. I wonder why I can't screenshot it. I wonder whether it's. Oh, Chris is going to pop it up, but it's going to be teeny, tiny, tiny, teeny.
Let's see if I can make it bigger. You want to see if I can make it bigger? Let's
It's
see
not
how
Chris.
good OBS is.
Chris, it's not you.
Yeah.
It's-
Oh yeah, man, this is great. Look at this. This is such a hack, but
yeah.
like, did that work?
Good man.
Oh,
Good man.
oh man, unfortunately it goes down though, so I have
It
to
goes.
go all the way up here. Okay,
Okay, you're going to press
can
that
you see
hamburger
that?
menu. Okay,
Yeah,
go on,
There
Tim.
you go.
It's the option
Can you
right
see
at the
it?
bottom we want.
Yeah, right.
Right to the bottom. Right to the
If you,
bottom.
Denied.
if you click on the option at the very bottom, I think it
Oh,
opens up a
configure?
new.
Just
Yeah,
gonna
the
get some
configure.
T-Rex
there we go.
that's-
travesty
there we
of
go.
streaming
That's sweet.
happens.
All right, hold on. Let me.
There
let
we
me-
go.
Okay.
Good
there
man.
we go. Can you see
Top
that?
man.
All right. There.
There we go.
So high tech.
Yeah, so I've been using this a lot in the dev build this week. Obviously, when you're creating artwork, you're using the color palette all the time, and I tend to stick to the default Inkscape one, basically because I'm lazy, and pretty much all the colors I need are there. But this is really good because I especially love the rose option, the slider at the very bottom. So if you can drag that across, Martin, you can see that's what I love, being able to have all
the rows. Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
that panel actually does appear on the stream. The pop-up doesn't, but the config panel does.
Ah, brilliant. Oh, excellent. Ah, yeah, I can see it now. Yeah.
So I can do that one.
Yeah, and then the border slider.
Yeah.
Pull that across. Yeah. Really good separation, which is there was borders in previous versions, but they were only a set width, whereas this gives really good separation to the colors. So when you're trying to search, you don't get that blending of colors when you're quickly looking. I really like that. And this is a theme for the 1.2 release. These new menus making a hell of a difference to workflow. I really like all the work that's been done on the new menu systems for a lot of the functions and features.
Yeah, so that pop-up, and I think this one is done by Mykov. Just to give props. Yeah, he's done a good job.
Top work. Brilliant.
Have
you can just see, looking at that, you can see how clean and crisp that looks, and it just makes it so much more enjoyable to use. It really does. You can clearly see exactly what you're looking for.
I like the spaces between the colors too. Actually, adding that really makes a difference.
Yeah.
It's much easier to see the separation of color values.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas that probably isn't great, right?
Yeah, I don't think anyone ever wants that. No one in their right mind wants that. No, no,
It's
this
good
is
for
this is
imagining the
brilliant.
color, but that's that's about it.
You just need more resolution in your screen. That's all,
Oh, it's
and for
2K,
your
man.
screen to
That's
take up most of the wall.
yeah,
But you know what? It seems like just a really basic function, but something like that can make a huge difference to your workflow, and is something that is there, and then it just gets out of your way,
yeah.
and it makes life easier. And those are the small things, but the real big wins for me. And yeah, I just really wanted to celebrate that work on that. And like I said,
Yeah.
all the new menus in 1.2. If you've not had a chance to play with 1.2 yet, go and do it, and you will be really impressed by the new menu systems.
Yeah, so
Unless you're using Windows.
since we're talking about color, let's quickly talk about the addition of HS Love, which is
Yeah,
a different color space. I believe Inkscape is the first graphics program to support HS Love color palette, or what is it? Color space? It's color spacing, as
yeah.
well as our regular HSL, HSV, RGB, CMYK, and CMS.
And I believe HSL is the default moving forward. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, it's the top one.
Yeah, yeah. That, and to be honest, that's the one I use all the time. So I was really pleased that it saves me having to keep going in and selecting it, because I am lazy.
Yeah.
But no, that's really good. And I
Yes.
love the fact if you click on the color wheel comes up really nice and big, and I love that.
Oh
I
yeah,
love the
right.
color wheel.
So this is
Yeah,
let's see. Oh, it's this. Oh yeah, this one.
yeah,
This one. Yeah.
yeah. I love the color wheel.
Because it
Really,
used to be a part of just one of them, right? It used to be just its own thing,
yeah,
and now
yeah,
I think HS Love and HSL both have the color wheel, and you can actually see here the wheel looks very different in HS Love.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean it's a beautiful change. I've actually
yeah.
brought up the gradient editor because the gradient editor has also changed, and I think it's
Yeah,
worth.
that's superb. That is
Yeah,
superb. It
yeah.
really is. Who did
This
the work on that, Martin?
this is Mykov again. So
Brilliant.
HS Love was by a contributor who just wanted to add this one feature, and I'm so sorry I forgot your name. But the gradient editor was added back in by Mykov. He took the original gradient editor, took the user experience team, I think Adam's processing of the user experience. There was a lot of discussions about how to redo this design properly. You should see the size of the discussions that happen for some of these user experience things. Like the discussions are different from say how PBS is handling the memory leaking or the crashing or the slowness. Those are very technical, very mathematics driven, but the design discussions are insane. Like how meticulous and detailed orientated that everybody is approaching that discussion, and they're all respectful, which I find
Yeah,
great. In that people, because design is subjective, and people do have to take a step back and think, what are they going to, what hills are they going to die on for this particular design? So it's great to see people coming together and being able to cooperate on, like, say, for instance, this great gradient editor.
yeah, yeah.
Hey,
It's top
hey,
work.
Dante. And okay, so is there anything final about the color palette, Tim?
No, that was it. Really, I just wanted to highlight the amazing work. That for me is, although like I say, it's a small thing and it gets out of your way, but this week alone, that's made a huge difference to my workflow. And sometimes I think small things like that get looked over and don't get celebrated. And I just wanted to highlight that and
Yeah,
just say amazing work, and well done to everyone involved. And like you said, with the gradient editor, absolutely superb. It's going to make a big difference to a lot of people.
yeah. I think it is. And to be honest with you, I think Mykov can probably take a lap and like celebrate the just amazing amounts of work that he's done on this release. There's a
Yeah,
couple of things like the snapping feature. He and I fought bitterly over the toolbar on this side. Various modifications to the tabs and the sizes and the just small tweaks, right, to button sizes and icons and stuff. A lot of attention to detail stuff that's probably not going to be noticed, but it really does improve the user experience, right? All those small changes. Oh, Mark says the HS love patch was from Massinessa Dietrich. Mispronouncing names is my thing. I do apologize.
Excellent.
There is did somebody mention the shape builder? Was it Zed? Yeah. So shape builder is not in Inkscape 1.2. Unfortunately, the feature was not finished because it was a Google Summer of Code project, and sometimes this happens with Google Summer of Code projects when the student doesn't have enough time to finish. A lot of students are young and they're ambitious and they take on large projects, which they probably learn a lot from that experience. So sometimes a programmer like Mark or myself or Mykov or someone will have to come in and take over that branch and finish it, get it across the line. A lot of the times the actual core of the feature is done, but it's all of that 80% of the work of just shaving down all of the coarse edges. And while technically we could just ship shape builder today, the problem is that it's just not finished. Like it's too rough. But the next release will come along and hopefully that'll be finished. So that work won't be wasted. We'll keep figuring out how to finish it because it's a really well anticipated feature. I guess we could talk about the failures, not just the successes. But it's like, it's not a perfect community. We're not going to be able to get every single feature in.
I want people to really savor the fact that we can do pages now, though. Like, maybe you should talk about that next, Martin, because that was your baby, wasn't it?
Well, let's talk about my first baby for this release.
Okay. So many babies.
So it's an entire crash of features. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about for this release is actually the layers and objects dialog. This is a long process because this actually started in the 1.0 release cycle, and the idea is that we had these two dialogues. We had the objects dialog and the layers dialog, and they almost but not quite did the same thing, and they were both written, like the layers dialog was ancient and the objects dialog was written by somebody who created a fork of Inkscape called Ponyscape, and I brought their feature into Inkscape when Ponyscape was discontinued. The problem is that the objects dialog was essentially a copy of the layers dialog, so it inherited all of the bad coding practices that the original developers had in that dialog, and it made it incredibly slow. So if you had tons and tons of objects, it would just be say if you had 1,000 rows, it would delete all 1,000 rows out of the dialog and recreate them every single time you moved an object. Right? Imagine how slow, what that would do to your computer to do that. Right? So closing that older objects dialog was preferable to having to try and move an object around the screen. So what the format was to write from scratch a new dialog that could replace both layers and objects. And so obviously we've called it layers and objects. This does mean that the objects dialog key combination has gone away, and now Control Shift L is the default for the layers and objects dialog. The feature comes with the visibility and lock icons that appear. Adam also had his hand on working with this feature. The idea is that you can click the eyeball and hide things, or you can click the lock and lock things. Each of the layers in root comes with its own color. It generates them based upon the last letter of the name. So if you change the name and it's still got auto color, the color will change. But you can also set the object color if you want. You can go into the object properties and set the highlight color, and then once it's fixed as something, it's fixed. So this dialog contains all of the same kinds of functionalities, right? You can move objects around in a stack. You can label them, which is great. You can add new layers. You can also switch to a layers only view. So if you're one of those people that really like the layers and dialog and don't really want all those object stuff going on, you can still get that functionality. We didn't want to remove that for you. The right click menu has been improved, so it's more contextual. And I believe, sorry, go on. Oh, okay. There's also some other stuff too, like you can hide everything but the current object. If I can remember which key it is, it was Shift. Oh yeah. Okay, so it's hold down Alt, and then you can see whatever the object is. So I think it's
That's a neat feature.
It's layer 1. Yeah, it creates a ghosting effect of all of the other objects. And my renderer for this really so you can do that to quickly go through and figure out what an object is. In fact, the person that recommended that feature, Roland Taylor, I was watching his stream of him trying to figure out which layer an object was on, and I was like, oh, I could just make the Alt key tell you information about the which one you're on. So big thanks to Taylor. I generally walk around Twitter and Twitch and a bunch of other things to canvas users for their ideas. So if you see me, wave. So there's a bunch of functionality in this, but mostly what I'm proud of is how fast it is. A big shout out to Thomas, who helped with the XML and updating nodes. So the idea is if you change something on the canvas, what you don't want is to delete all of these objects and recreate them. You actually want it to just insert the one object that you've created or delete the one row that you've deleted. This is important for speed, and so a big thanks to Thomas for helping with the technical aspects there. Do you guys have any comments about this dialogue?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we should just take a second and realize how amazing it is to be able to lock and unlock objects now in a regular Inkscape dialog that actually works, because that was not possible before, and now not only is it possible, but it's easy.
Well, easy, yes, but I will push back because the original objects dialog did allow you to lock things.
No, it did, but as you said before, it was slow as heck.
It was slow as
especially when
heck,
you're
yeah.
working with enough objects to need to lock something, like the background, for example, or
Oh, Rick Johnson says, will the new layers and objects show clipped and masked designations? Yes. So it doesn't quite happen in the way that Adam wanted. He wanted children in this dialogue for each of the clips. I didn't want to do that. So I've clipped this rectangle, and you can see there's a tiny pair of scissors that is on this object, and that tells you that it's clipped. There'll probably be some improvements in the future so that you can edit this clip or make it invisible, for example, or lock it. But for now, what it does is for masks and for clips, if I turn them, let's see, undo. If I add a mask, you can actually see there's a little mask that appears. Looks like a what do you call it? A play? Yeah, it's a little face. Tim, have you used this dialogue yet?
Yeah, I was gonna say, the first time I used this, I absolutely hated it. Absolutely hated it. I thought it was the worst thing in the world, and I stuck at it. And about an hour later, I can't do without it. Literally, it was a 180-degree turnaround, and it was just because it was so alien. But when you actually use it in a workflow, it becomes so intuitive. And when you go back to the standard layers dialog, you just miss having everything there in one place. and it again, it's one of those things that is just there. It's out of your way, but it's so powerfully useful. And it's like, why have we never had this before? It's one of those things. It's just been an
Yeah.
absolute revelation. So top marks, Martin, brilliant. I just, when I go back to using 1.1 now, it's like, no, where is it? I have to go
Where are the
back.
features?
I can't go
No.
backwards. It's like,
You can still use
no.
the objects a dialogue, but having it all in one place is much better. That way you don't
Yeah,
have to choose. like
Yeah, and there
um,
was deliberate. So there was deliberate design decisions about simplifying this in dialogue as well. There was a ton of work I had to do in GTK 3 tree views to like get these colors and get this, to appear correctly. But the design decision for like simplifying this, because I don't know if you remember the original objects dialog had like 4 different icons, and they were like right here. And that, it was very cluttered. And one thing I like about this is just how simple it is. Right, you've got the little icon for its type and its color, plus the name, and then all the
yeah,
way over the other end is the little eyeball and the little lock that only appears when you hover over it, or it's
yeah.
locked.
But it makes sense, doesn't it? You just look at it. Anyone can look at this for the first time and know exactly what they're doing. Okay, you might miss the clipping mask little icon there unless that was pointed out to you.
Yes.
But everything else just literally just screams at you. It's intuitive, and that is amazing. And that's what makes Inkscape really good, is the fact that it is such an intuitive workflow. So yeah, top marks there, mate.
Yeah, I
Top
mean,
marks.
this is actually one of the things we want to get to is a project that not only is listening but is capable of listening. Right, we have time that we can actually ask users. Actually, what are you doing with Inkscape? How can we actually make that better for you? And then being able to sit down and think about the design, think about the coding, and delivering a change. I'm really happy with functionality like this because it's gone through lots of user brains, right? Not just developers, but like it's gone through people that use Inkscape to do actual work that make their money using Inkscape.
I think that's the important thing, Martin, is, people need to come on board and take part in discussions.
Yeah,
Because as a developer or a UI designer, or you get stuck in your own little world, and you don't have all the use cases. Inkscape is all things to all people. So it's really important that we develop it in a way that everyone can use it, not just artists or not just graphic designers, but anyone, and it be intuitive for everyone. So it's really important that, like all the guys have come into the chat today, to come in, have your say, don't sit there quietly, speak up,
yeah.
because everything you've got to say is just as important as anything that we've got to say. So you're a user of Inkscape, speak up, say your piece, join the conversation, help make Inkscape move forward. So
one thing to add to that is please be patient with us as well, because if you come in with a whole laundry list of demands, or you're sure that you must have CMYK, for example, this week, we hear you, but we can't do that right now. It's going to, or what I recommend if you want to get involved with Inkscape is come in expecting to become part of the community,
Yeah.
right? Don't drop a bag of suggestions off and just leave,
Well,
because it won't,
I would
won't
say
get
that
looked at.
your politeness to the project is entirely contingent with how large a bag of money you've put in front of me.
That's also true. If you come with money, yes.
Here's $1 million. I want to be an absolute asshole to you until you deliver CMYK. I'd be like, you know what? Okay, fine. I'll do it.
Well, okay. So
Because resources, it's
if you
resources,
have
right?
a bad attitude plus money,
Right. It's
see Doc after the after the live stream.
because you said it, Chris. It's demands. Never come into an open source project with demands, right?
Demands, no
Because
demands.
what right do you have to ask anybody else to do free work for you for nothing? It has to be a conversation. Has to be a conversation. It has to be
yeah,
a dialogue between you who have needs and volunteers or paid contractors or people who want to barter for their services. There's lots of ways in which you can be heard. And like politeness goes a long way towards buttering people up to like helping you tweak things or change things or moving in a certain direction or something. But there are no guarantees, and so patience is definitely going to have to be the way in which we operate.
Yeah, but I think joining conversations and perhaps sometimes just sitting back and watching conversations take part and learn the ropes, learn how people interact, then join the conversations and learn how things progress, and then perhaps bring in ideas when you understand the way that things work and how things get done, because the reality is completely different to what a lot of people think. Is not a paid company where a director can demand something happens tomorrow.
Right.
There's a lot of people involved, there's a lot of wheels and cogs, and discussion is a big part of anything that happens in an open source project.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll answer the question from Rick. I mean, about everybody is always asking about CMYK. They are, and one of my future experimental projects is to work with Mark, who's had to run home to upload the files I deleted, and Chris, to press the issue of CMYK very, very hard. But because I'm operating as a Patreon sponsored developer, I have to ask my Patreons what they want. And it's true that if I go to them and say, okay, here are the options, I can finish the connectors tool, I can do the CMYK, I can do other improvements, I can fix crashes. If they all come back to me and they say, oh, actually, we'd want the connectors tool, my hands are going to be tied. I'm going to have to press that instead. That's my personal situation right now, is that I'm following my sponsors. So this is my invitation to you. If you'd like to be a sponsor, it's a great opportunity to literally tell me what to do. But of course, I will also be listening and also be trying to do the best for the project, even with those restrictions.
And all jokes aside, be nice to Doc. I mean, don't be mean to Doc. It's like I kicking a bag full of puppies. Just you wouldn't do it. Just don't.
You wouldn't kick a bag of puppies.
No, you wouldn't kick a bag of puppies.
You wouldn't put puppies in a bag anyway. Who's been making all these puppy bags and leaving them around for me to trip over? Okay, so we got more features to talk about actually, but we've all talked about our features, so I'm going to throw this back to the chat. What should we talk about next? Can somebody post the link to the 1.2 release notes so that everybody has a list of all of the features that we have made a note of? I'll read it out. It's wiki.inkscape.org/wiki/release_notes/1.2.
You get all that?
There you go.
Keep typing.
.com. Okay. So, for example, we could talk about the multi-page stuff, which Chris is pressing me to talk about because it's cool.
It's cool.
But there's the Selector Tool functionality, which is actually a very easy one. You know what? I'll start with that because I don't think anybody's going to talk about that.
I'll tell you what, Martin. One of the most impressive ones for me is the on-canvas alignment snapping.
I was going to say something about that too.
Okay.
I only had a brief play with that this week because I didn't realize it was there, to be honest. I literally just washed over it and didn't see it, and I was playing with it the other day. Oh my goodness, that is amazing. It really is.
Yeah, so this is these guides that appear and snap objects.
Oh, yeah, but like even more so than that, it'll align and distribute as well. So like if you have, for example, a bullet list that you're making, you usually would have to just wait until all your bullets are there and then use the alignment tools dialogue to do it. But now, if you actually let's show them how it works, Doc. Why don't you make a bullet point, or like a line of text, for
Line
example.
of text. Okay. So the one thing I'm gonna note is that I changed my preferences because I was testing something, and I've made my labels really, really, really big. So
Okay.
if you see me on the stream hover over and it says handle in massive text, that's
Okay.
why.
Maybe just use a square then.
No, no, it'll do. It's going to do this no matter what. What I want to do
Does it
actually
work?
is I want to maybe. Do I want to? Yeah, I'm going to hide the background because what's happening here is my computer is slow because that background keeps on trying to be re-rendered. So
Yeah, yeah.
let's just hide that for a second. I know it's not as pretty. Okay, so Chris, guide me through. What are we doing?
Yeah, yeah. Just type your first bullet point. This is a bullet point or
Okay,
something like that.
this no, no, that didn't work, Chris. I started to type and it did nothing.
Okay.
This
I wouldn't. I wouldn't. No, there it goes. Yay.
bullet point.
Yes. Now, if you drag it and click the
Drag it.
yeah. Well, I mean, so you're making a bullet list, right? So drag the next one down about as far as you'd like to underneath. Yep,
Okay.
right there. And now do it again. And
So
you can see when you do it again, it will catch on to the fact that you've aligned two of them before.
yeah,
Is that? No, that's not working. Is
yeah,
it?
that's yeah. Because you
Yeah.
can see it
Oh,
on
yeah.
the right hand side. The little eyes that
Okay,
appear.
right. I can't see it. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, how cool is that? It's just like
Yeah.
it'll auto align them uh, as you go. You don't even have to worry about the alignment dialog. And this, I must say, this is about how I'm going to be doing most of my alignment from now on.
Right.
At first, I didn't understand what all the extra stuff that was going on because it's a lot of extra lines going from here to there. I'm like, okay, something's happening with snapping. But once I realized what was actually happening, I'm like, whoa, this is amazing.
So
This is really, really
let's try and
cool.
quickly put some bullets in.
Yeah, and so you can align them with the
Yeah, that
center
demonstrates it really well.
plus. Yeah, it's like so good. Who wrote this code? Can
This
we
was
praise them real quick?
yeah, this was a Google Summer of Code project, and
Yeah,
they actually completed this one, which was great.
it's super, super genius.
Yeah, there
And
it
Yeah.
goes.
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, this alignment thing was one of the things with the shape builder tool to be highly praised and highly sought after. Justin Shinedu says one of the best features right now is the snap feature. It eliminates the time spent getting the mouse to align and distribute tab and back again. Yeah, I will say one of the things that I did many years ago now is I added align and distribute third click, but the design of this needs to be, I think, redone. It's still there, which is fine. But the actual on canvas like dragging things around is much smoother. I mean, you can just see the user experience is so different.
Yeah.
I actually added the snapping alignment to the pages as well, so you can actually snap align pages.
Yeah, that is super nice as well.
Yeah, because without that, it's kind of hard to get pages to be aligned. And I think all of the pages can be snapped as well. Yeah, so all the pages.
I just love them. I love multi-pages so much. Also, I additionally love the fact that you can have a differently sized pages as well, and like the PDF doesn't care if they're differently sized either. So that's really, really handy actually.
So this is actually a
Yeah.
feature I completely forgot to mention in the last update video that I did. So like not even my regular watchers and sponsors even know about this, but I added the resize squares to all four corners.
Oh yeah, thank you. That is cool.
Because the flipped canvas direction meant that the box was at the top instead of the bottom, and I was like, oh my
yes.
god, I'll just put them on all four corners, then that solves the problem.
Well,
Martin, question from chat.
Yeah.
Software Livre asks, can this feature be disabled if they need more freedom of movement?
Uh,
That is snapping. Can that be
yes,
disabled temporarily?
yes. So the first thing is like the snapping when as you're dragging can usually be turned off by holding down the shift key, right? So you don't even need to change anything on the settings or anything you've got set up. If you start dragging and then you hold down shift, there's no snapping anymore. And then if you let go of shift, it comes back again. That's the quickest way to turn it off. The next is at the top right hand corner, there's the snapping toggle, right? So just pressing that button will turn snapping off completely. I believe there's a shortcut key for that as well. Is it %? Yes. So
you can also
shift.
Or you can also still access all of your old snapping things in the drop down there. Yeah, you can
Oh
see
yeah,
it all there.
I was getting there. So,
And actually, I think the option at the bottom, the very bottom of that,
yeah, the
click
reset
that
to
too.
simple mode.
Yeah. So then you have these other bits here that you can toggle off and on at your leisure. So if something's bugging you, you can just turn it off if you don't like it.
Yeah.
What I recommend though is that you leave stuff on, even if it's annoying at first, because like Tim said, with the whole layers, there are extra things there, but oh my gosh, if you learn to use them, you will never want to be without them again, and it will save you time. So it takes a little bit of extra, but it pays to be patient and to learn how to
Yeah,
use them.
I mean, I'd say like snapping definitely causes frustration when I do editing, but I keep forgetting in my head about holding shift.
Yeah, people in the chat are saying that they didn't know about shift, and it's made a big difference to their impression of snapping.
Yeah,
So
it definitely
that's really
does.
good.
Yeah, so like not knowing that shift thing exists like drives you mental because there's so many times when snapping genuinely gets in the way.
There's another thing that you can do, and that's the hotkey for toggling snapping on and off is the %. So if you hold Shift 5
Shift
on
5.
most keyboards,
Yeah.
it will toggle it on and off automatically. So you don't have to then.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
% key, isn't it? The
Yeah, that's
shift
the
five.
toggle.
Yeah.
The toggle.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing with the shift key is that it does sometimes get in the way of, say, for instance, I'm resizing this star. It's not possible to resize like this and have snapping because the shift key is being used for both turning off the snapping and also this resize control at the same time. This can be changed in the modifiers settings, so you could change this if you wanted. But yeah, it's problematic sometimes when the shift key is being used to because shift is used for a lot of things.
So if snapping is turned on and you try and use Shift with resizing, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So okay, don't do that.
Yeah. So shift key.
I just had a hexagon that changed to be like 10 miles high.
Hexagon is now hexagon.
turn off. Yeah, hexa left is what it.
Hexa left. They are the best of guns.
Yeah, so turn snapping off entirely before trying to do a shift resize.
Yeah. This is a known problem, and it's not really fixable because it's a it's like conflicting keys, right?
Yeah.
So preference. Actually, I can't show you preferences because the dialog doesn't actually show up, which is a shame. But in the modifiers controls, you can actually see. You can change it. But if anybody has any ideas about how to do that better, do come in and let us know. Should we not display a message in the bottom window to hold shift while moving objects if they don't want to work with snapping? Yeah, it's true. And if you look at it, it says move by this millimeters with control to restrict the horizontal and vertical, with shift to disable snapping. So it is there in the status bar when you are dragging things around, but not when you just have it selected.
Yeah, and it should be because there's already a whole lot of information when you just have something selected already there, and you want that information.
Yeah.
Like it shows what kind of object it is, how many sub objects there are, if it's a group, right? Whether it's clipped or all these things. That bar is my best friend when
The
I'm
bar
having
is
a
it's how we debug like a lot of issues. If somebody comes into the chat and says, "Oh, I have this issue with this thing or that thing," the first thing that we ask them to do is look at that status bar.
look at the status bar. Sometimes
Select
that will just tell them what to do as well.
select the
So
problematic thing and like let us know. What does it say? Does it say it's text? Does it say it's a rectangle? Does it say it's a path? Because yeah, you can assign a key to disable snapping. You can actually change that as well.
yeah.
Dante Camaggio says, "Is there a release date?" There is no fixed exact date, but there is a date-ish, which is the end of April, start of May.
Yeah.
So since the beta is released, now it's just fixing stuff. So we're like personally, I'm going to be fixing stuff when it comes up, but also starting to think about features and other things for the next version, because it tends to slow down. Like we fix a lot of the stuff, and there's some things we can't fix because it would break too many other things. So do test the beta and report the problems. No, don't report the problems. Report the crashes. We can't fix the problems. We can fix the crashes. That's the situation that we're in. Okay, so I wanted to talk about this feature, which is probably something that's relatively unknown, which I was commissioned to add last year by Barbara from Brazil. She commissioned me to add in so to make these resize handles selectable, right? And what happens when you select one of these resize handles is that the position that you can resize and position the object from is changed, right? So say with this star, right? If I put it to 0, 0, with the default, you can see the X and Y is 0, 0. But if I select the other nodes, you can see how the X and Y will change. And not only does this allow you to position things to an exact coordinate based upon whichever side of the object is selected, but it also allows you to resize against that too. So imagine I had this object here and I wanted to change its width from 36 to 70. By selecting one of the center points, I can change the width, and the width will expand in both directions. This means that you not only can control the side from the handles by dragging them around, but you have a much greater degree of freedom to change it from the toolbar. Now, one of the changes is that originally the center, right, which you can move around. So say if imagine I wanted it to resize it against this position inside this purple rectangle for some reason, and I want it to be like 30, right? So you can see it's also changing position, which can be quite useful. That center node is not visible unless you're in the rotate and skew location. Originally, I had it visible in the original select and dialog, but it was causing way too many user experience issues. So now it's just back to being inside of the rotate and skew. But it is one of the most useful parts of this functionality, is that you have this essentially this handle that you can drag around and resize and position things. So it's like if I wanted this corner exactly to be 0, 0, I can just reposition that and then change it so now that is 0, 0. As well as obviously being able to rotate around that. Use the shift. Oh, see, rotation with shift is broke too because it's conflicting. Yep.
Turn off snapping.
Conflicting keys. So you can see, right, there's a lot more that can be done now with these handles because they're selectable.
Yeah. Well, actually, that kind of, there's a function. What is it? Or is it shift? When you are rotating things, you can rotate from. Or you could already rotate from a corner automatically.
Yeah, you could rotate from the opposite
corner that you have the handle. Maybe that doesn't need to be overridden now. What do you think? Because now you can just choose one.
It's It's
You think that would
true.
make people angry?
Write it down. Write it down. We'll work it through. Workshop it through the user experience team,
Yeah, I
and we'll
wonder.
see.
Because that button is way overloaded on rotate.
The shift key.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the shift key.
Yeah. The shift. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Also, not very many people know about that holding shift because it's actually not. Is it?
So
No, it's not in the. It isn't in the status bar that you can hold shift at all. So that's an invisible feature. I would be surprised if most people knew that you could do that. You could do before.
yeah, it is. It is there. It says rotate selection with Alt to snap angle with Shift to rotate around the opposite corner.
So where are you seeing that?
It's when you hover over the handle, not when you hover over the object.
Oh, when you hover over the hand. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. There it is. Okay, never mind.
Okay,
All
so
good.
Software Livre asks, how is the status of the Inkscape at Schools project? Heard good things about it. So I'm not aware of the Inkscape at Schools projects. It's not something that's internal to the Inkscape project itself. Can you maybe explain what it is? And Mr. Hot Headed says, download dev version or upcoming version. Actually, the latter is preferred. Everything that we're showing here will be in the next version, which is scheduled for release in a couple of weeks' time. You can download the beta when Mark has finished uploading the rest of the versions, and you can obviously download the dev version, which will have all this stuff too. Yeah, Shift key is carrying a load for sure. We need Shift 2 and Shift 3 and Shift 4 for like a special Inkscape keyboard. We could make millions.
Just have a whole
Inkscape
keyboard full of shift.
Yeah, it's just Shift key, like lots of Shift keys. Yeah. Okay. There was something. So you guys hopefully had that link to the features list. So apart from the stuff that we've mentioned so far, please comment what you'd like us to talk about next. And I'm going to pour myself a cup of tea. I don't know if you gentlemen have yourselves a drink.
I have some sparkling water here. Although I guess the picture had coffee, didn't it? It's like
Your
false
picture, yes.
advertising.
Your
I don't
picture
drink a
had
cup of
coffee.
on the feed.
Although, my cup was sort of like this, right? It was the beautiful little cup.
Time to illustrate that cup, and it doesn't even look like my cup, actually. I probably should have made it black or something.
This one is my American Provisions cup. Oh, is that flipped, actually? I think because I flipped my camera. So Software Libre says, it was a project to get professionals to teach on public schools the fundamentals of Inkscape so that people can get to know the tool, and my chat is limited to what I can see beyond that. I know that Inkscape is inside of the curriculum in the UK. There's a specific technological curriculum that includes Inkscape, but it also includes a couple of other free software projects as well. It's taught at year 8. And it's basically simple designing and designing a product. So it's part of the technological curriculum. I know it's a part of the Indonesian school curriculum at the high school level. We've heard reports. Generally, what happens is I hear reports of it being in schools because teenagers will come onto Twitter and absolutely throw a strap. No offense, teenagers. But if you're being forced to use a tool in school, I get it. You want to have you want to complain about it, which is true. Inkscape it's not perfect.
It's
So
better
Martin,
though.
while we're waiting for the chat to come up with some ideas, I've got one, the configurable toolbar.
Yes, don't mind me. I'm grabbing a muffin. So, Tim, why don't you take us through what the configurable toolbar is?
Right. So let me change my screen a minute because I don't think I can do it from memory. Let me just pull up Inkscape a second.
Oh, my screen's gone. Okay.
So we go into edit, preferences.
We're going to preferences.
And then we go into toolbars.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to see that. Okay. Let me
And
to tell you what, Tim. Let me have a poke at OBS because this is important to be able to see this window.
yeah,
We're going to capture the screen, right? The whole screen.
yeah.
Create a new one. My person, yeah. Screen display port. This is going to be a bit rough and ready, everybody, but I think it is important. That's why I wanted to do it. Okay, if I remember correctly, I hold down Alt to start cropping things out. And I'm on 2, right? Yep. Paste. Visible. Okay, so I'm going to transition, and hopefully you'll see now actually a smaller subset of my screen. So you'll be able to actually see a bit more stuff. So, go on, Tim. Preferences.
Yep, so go into Preferences and then into Interface.
Yep.
Click on the drop down and you should see Toolbars is the second option down underneath Theming.
There we go.
And what you can actually do here is you can turn off tools that perhaps you don't use. So this is quite useful for people with a smaller laptop screen.
Yeah.
So where the toolbox on the left-hand side of the screen goes off the screen. So you can turn off tools that you don't use and basically concentrate on the ones that you do. And that is so useful. I use a small little laptop quite often, and having to scroll up and down for the tools can be really quite annoying. So getting rid of half a dozen ones that I never use.
What are your most hated tools, Tim?
Most
ones
hated?
you just
Well,
want
I
gone.
don't think I actually hate any really. It's just ones I just don't use.
So we also changed the widgets, so you can actually resize this box now,
Yeah.
and get rid of it if you really that inclined. Because don't forget, there's the shortcut keys still work even if the button is hidden, right? The tool is still exists, and also it adds a scroll bar if the tools actually fall off the end. There was a question about the alpha. So yes, the beta would have been released today. You would have been able to download it. I deleted the Windows uploads. Mark has to go home and re-upload them. My boo-boo. The alpha is great. The beta is better. The dev version is basically the beta. So if you want it right now, you can actually go download the dev version of Inkscape.
I've been using the alpha for the last 4 weeks now in production, and it's been really good actually. So if you must have it now, you can get the alpha, I think.
No, don't use the alpha.
Don't use the alpha.
Use the dev version. Like if you must, right? Because there's so many crashes and fixes and stuff that have happened since, and we don't want people using something that we know has crashes in it, and then we fix them.
Yeah, I've been using
forget
the
that the
dev
Windows
version.
has more crashes.
Yeah, I've used the
I've
dev
actually
version for
found
the
it
last
pretty
few
stable.
days.
At least on Linux anyway. But I know that doesn't help the majority of our users. So, do we know what percentage of our users are still like Windows folks?
It's very hard to tell. So we can tell that 95% of our downloads are Windows, and 5% of them are Mac OS.
5%.
But think about that number.
Yeah.
That leaves 0% for Linux. And the reason for that is because Linux users do not come to our website to download Inkscape.
No. Well, that's true, actually. Yeah, they can actually just open up the command line.
They always go to the package manager. Even Chrome OS users, they use the Debian package. So we may have We may have more Linux users than Windows users, but we would never know.
We would never know. Well, in a way, that's good, actually. um,
Martin,
although, what?
question about the toolbars. Sorry, Chris, to interrupt.
Oh no,
Um,
no, no. I was gonna go off and see if you couldn't like ask the canonical for the figures for the PPA or whatever the people are downloading from.
But even
Um,
that's not going to give us an actual. And the thing is like we've talked about the same kind of tracking that Audacity does, and we've all decided very clearly that Inkscape is not the kind of
no,
project that tracks users at
it's
all.
a curiosity
It's a
at most. It's not
curiosity.
what's bothering
We'd
people.
rather not
So
know, right? We'd rather be completely blind to who is using Inkscape. And to be honest with you, we'd much rather ask a person who gets involved. All right, and this
well,
is
and
why joining
to
the
be
chat and
fair,
talking about it.
we really want um, the experience of using Inkscape to be good on all platforms. So yeah.
Yes. But I will say Linux users will submit bug reports more readily and more precisely. So they tend to get the most service because they're able to communicate the best in terms of what the problem was. Right? They'll even fix the problem sometimes. Um, Windows users and Mac users, unfortunately, are not just not going to have the same numbers of programmers and stuff. So this is why it's important actually to listen to Windows users, even though it's kind of annoying to be like, oh man, Windows just sucks. Can you just stop using it? But this is
No,
not a good answer, right?
that's
So we do have
sorry
to
if
listen.
anybody thought that's what I was saying. No, or I'll
Yeah,
joke about that, but I do not recommend switching your whole operating system just to use
just use Linux.
or
Just use
Inkscape,
Inkscape.
even though it's a very good program, especially on Linux.
Oh no, I say that to people: if you are confident supporting yourself, use open source, and it doesn't matter whether that means Inkscape or that means Linux. If you're
Well,
confident
or if
supporting
you're
yourself,
curious, like if you want to earn more of your digital freedom,
well,
then
there
Linux
are
is the obvious choice. But you have to have that goal to work for, right? There's got to be some motivator to to send you to a completely different operating
well, no,
system than
well,
you're
no.
using.
There are other options. So, for instance, this computer, all this stuff is running on is a System 76 machine. If you buy a System 76 machine, then you are getting support through them, right? So it's different if you create a Hackintosh where you're installing Linux yourself. That's on you then, right? To support yourself, and that sucks. Supporting yourself is tiresome. But if you buy a computer with Linux installed, then you have a route to getting support. It's
That's true.
the same with Inkscape, right? If you buy Inkscape from a shop, you have a route to getting support. If you download it from the website, it's on
Oh,
you. Unfortunately,
try and get support from Microsoft too. Like I've
I
never
know
gotten any kind of support from Microsoft.
that actually is one of the interesting things about Critter when they do like the download version from the Microsoft Store. I wonder whether they have the ability to like do support services. It'd be like, well, I paid for Critter, surely I should be able to ask a quick question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if people are selling Krita, then they kind of might need to answer some questions every now and then.
Hmm.
But I mean, that could also just be pointing somebody to a
Oh,
forum where those kinds of questions are answered. It doesn't necessarily have to be done by the person, right? Who probably needs to be coding most of the time. But that's also why I answer a lot of questions for the project in like the Facebook group,
right.
etc.
Yeah,
Because
exactly. Yeah.
I don't want them to come and bother you while you're fixing stuff that that I need
Oh,
fixed.
no, but
So
so Mark just said that the beta is available. Um, the link is inkscape.org/release/inkscape dash 1.2 beta. Somebody please post that link to the chat. Thank you, Mark, for running home and uploading those releases. And again, I am so sorry. Mark stayed up until 3 a.m. his time last night uploading the beta. So a big thank you to Mark for just the dedication of staying up till 3 a.m. to do something. He's not paid to do this. It's just fantastic.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about the toolbar. Did we?
I,
Was anybody
sorry, Martin, I
monitoring?
just had a quick question about the toolbars, if I may.
Oh yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Um, so is there ever going to be a feature where we can move the categories, the individual, so like the selection category, the shapes category? Is that something that's in development or not in development, or
It's not in development in code, but it is in development in my brain. I've thought about the problem. It just needs to be coded. It's one of those things that has you've got to play it delicately, because I could just tell it to move the widgets and do some stuff, but to do it consistently and to do it robustly, so you can always turn it back on, or that's the trick. That's what takes the time. So if you want to add a feature request for the next release, I'm sure I could look into that.
Cool. What would you want done, Tim?
Basically just to be able to reorder the categories. So like primarily I'll use the calligraphy tool and the pen tool and text tools. So for me to have those at the top would make sense, rather than having to search down through and find them in the middle of the menu. If I could put the ones I use most often at the top, that would make a lot more sense for me.
This isn't a UX comment, but have you tried to memorize the hotkeys for those? Because
I do use hotkeys, but there's times when it's just easier to just sometimes, and it might be a bug, and I probably need to raise a bug report about it. Sometimes using the hotkeys, that especially if you've come off the canvas and you've selected a menu off of the canvas, then using the hotkey, it doesn't function, and you've actually got to physically click on the canvas to enable the hotkey to work. So then sometimes it's quicker to just click on the tool itself.
Yeah, you know what that it probably is the what do they call them? The mnemonics. Because for people who use the tab key to choose things, the focus is stolen from whatever it was before. Yeah. And that causes all kinds of problems.
Yeah, and that's basically what happens to me a lot is, like you just said, the focus is taken away, and then you've got to click on the canvas, and so sometimes it's just easier to click on the tool.
It's also that, like, those features are for people who can't use a mouse to click things, but like, who's gonna even load up Inkscape without a mouse? It's ridiculous to have that feature in Inkscape. It would be unusable to people who can't use a mouse, unfortunately.
So Tim,
pointer, I should say.
This is this the main toolbar. So one of the features that Inkscape has that is not, we're never going to tell you that you can do this because it's kind of technical. These are the files in Inkscape's user experience files. They're like how things should be laid out. You can actually change these files without recompiling Inkscape. So anybody can go in and change, for instance, the menus file. That's not a UI file.
You know what we want, Doc? We don't want to edit files.
I know. But sometimes people do.
What we really like is for you to work your magic and have like a little place above each one where you can grab it and just move it down.
Yeah, no, I get it. But what I'm saying is
smooth transition where they all like hop around that thing as you're dragging it down to rearrange them. Come on, you can do it. It's not a tall order or anything, especially with GTK3.
Yeah, easy.
No. We definitely want features. We definitely want to make it easy. But there is always going to be a situation where those files are editable. And one of the reasons why I'm trying to move towards using Glade more and using those UI files more is because there are ideas out there that we'd like to try. I want to make an Inkscape for kids. That's not possible if it's all in code. It's just too much, the maintenance burden of operating those two things at the same time. But if they're in UI files, then you can just change the UI files, make them simpler or prettier, or have different features or different focuses, and you can have a version of Inkscape that's just dragging, like you just replace those files, and then you have a different Inkscape essentially.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the complexity is being made discoverable, especially like the snapping toolbar. It was just there all the time, and it was one of the most confusing things to look at for new users. They just kind of ignored it because it's just like, what is all that stuff?
So Mark is saying that he can't post a link in the chat room. Is that correct? I'm actually going into the. I'm not actually in the. What do you call it? The YouTube studio, so I can't actually see this stuff. But let's have a look. Edit title.
I've already posted a link to the beta.
You already have one. Okay, so you posted the link. Okay, so we're good. Other people can see that, right?
Yeah, if you scroll back up, yeah, it's there.
Okay.
1.2 latest.
Customization. Gotcha. Participation is anybody. There's no slow mode. Edit moderators blacklist word from your community settings.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I let's not do this now. Okay, so features. Let's get back onto track. Did anybody in the chat say what the features they were interested in? Because this is going back too fast for me to read it all.
Can I suggest one?
Oh, go ahead. I mean, I don't want to also ignore the chat, but go on.
Well, okay.
But if you
Go ahead
can't,
and have a read.
if you didn't read it, yeah. Comes out of an arrow, yeah. So Mr. Hothead says, wait, what? Snapping options come out of an arrow. Pretty much.
Yeah, and actually, you'll notice that they're words now instead of the same icon over and over again at the beginning of each one. So huge UX improvement.
I mean,
that was so confusing to people. They're like, okay, what do these ones do? And it's like, yeah, you can mouse over it and wait for it to tell you what it is, or you can just like have them all in plain text and check the ones that you want, or you don't have to interpret the icons to try and figure out,
right.
Especially when they're the same icon over and over again, or at the beginning of each section. This is just such a better way, so much easier to deal with. Just so much work has been done here to make it easier to use. And
sorry,
yeah, like even
sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to do the somebody says pin the link, but I don't know how to do that. Chat, make mod chat. Can I do that? Put user in timeout. No, add my moderator. There you go, Mark. You are a moderator. I hope that gives you tools. And I'll just say hello to everybody. Hello. Okay. Get rid of that. Okay, Mark. I hope that solves your problem. Sorry to interrupt you there, Chris.
Oh, that's okay. I was just gonna say, like, can you open up the snapping dialog again? I just want to point out one more small detail which I love, and that's that the sections are indented as well.
Yes.
Which they weren't in the icons, so you didn't like accidentally click off a whole group because you wanted to click something. It's very well organized and easy to read in this way, and it also has icons to kind of show you what they are.
Yeah, exactly in the icons. It's a really nice improvement. Do you wanna let's talk about multi-page?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm all about the multi-page.
So to give you the background, Inkscape has always done a single page document. It's the default in how SVG itself works, is that there is a single canvas. But so many people use Inkscape in workflows where multiple pages is useful, and they said it was impossible. They said it was inconceivable that Inkscape could do multiple pages. They said it was impossible that we'd convince the W3C to have pages as a part of the specification, and they were right. the SV,
Yeah.
the W3C was entirely unconvinced by Inkscape's need to have multiple pages, and so we've had to add them ourselves. They're not a standard part of SVG. When you create a document with multiple pages, you are creating an SVG with the normal SVG, which is the first page, and then a bunch of other stuff, which won't be rendered by any other editor or read by any other editor. Sorry about that, but it's the world we live in.
It's an Inkscape SVG.
Yeah, it's an Inkscape SVG. But this does mean that you can open and save PDF files. So you can open up a file with multiple, what do you call them, pages. That's it. And each of those pages will be imported. You can also import a PDF with multiple pages, and it'll add those pages on. There is a new tool at the bottom of the toolbar, which is the multi-tool tool. This allows you to organize your tools by dragging them around, draw new pages. These pages conceptually are just areas of the screen, of the canvas, I should say. That's all they are, is just a top, left, width and height, and then a label.
What happens if you switch layers?
So layers are completely separate and distinct, right? So if you have multiple layers, you can just have some objects on some layers, some objects in some pages, and those two distinctions are different.
Gotcha.
We did that deliberately. I know there was a lot of people that wanted clipping and layers and pages to also sort of be smushed together.
It would be a mess.
It's what the reason is it's expensive from a code point of view to maintain that kind of cross wiring between all of these different things. So it's just easier to say pages are this very basic concept of an area on the screen. And even with that simplification, it took me weeks of programming and refinement and fixing problems. Which is why when I look at the CMYK problem, I'm looking at that and I'm going, that's bigger. That's bigger than multi-page. So that's a consideration that I have to have now about what work I work on and what things I target specifically. Multi-page though was a target for 2021, and I'm really happy, and I'm very happy for all the people that have tested them. We made sure that it's actually more feature complete than I thought it would be. To be honest, I thought it would be more basic than this. But the fact that you can create pages, they snap together. There's a new item on the bottom next to the status bar that allows you to change pages. So you can go backwards and forwards through them, and it will automatically zoom into that page. Mark says I need more subscribers, more YouTube subscribers. I don't even have 1,000 subscribers yet.
If you want CMYK, subscribe to this channel.
I can't. No, I'm not doing 20,000 hours of work because I have YouTube subscribers.
I didn't say that we would deliver it. I said if you want CMYK.
If you want, yeah.
It's not an offer. It's just. I do not represent Doc.
So as well as the creation of pages, as well as the opening of existing PDFs, you also have the ability to file save as a PDF with multiple pages as well. So there's the full workflow there, from creating pages to importing pages to exporting them. There's also
while you're on that topic of creating pages, go ahead and erase all of those little subpages. This is probably not how most people would use it. Now add a page that's the same size, right? Show them how easy it is to add pages.
Okay, so the pages toolbar that comes up has a button for just adding a page.
I mean, how nice is that? It just like adds them side by side.
And
so this is probably your basic use case is you've got some multi-page document that you want to make. In a certain size, and it's also nice that you can choose them out of a drop down as well, so you don't have to click and drag, but you can click and drag. This is how I would use it like 99% of the time, is just like clicking that button and adding one that's exactly the same size directly to the right of the last one.
Yeah, so
It's simple, easy to use,
you can
perfect.
change the orientation. There's a little icon in this drop down, as well as picking an existing preference, but it's also a text box, and you can type in, this is something that I've been using, 20 by 20, and it'll give you a 20 millimeter by 20 millimeter
Oh,
page.
sweet.
You can also do 20 comma 30, for example. Or, and this is something that's very cool, say it's in millimeters now, but I want something that's, I don't want to change it 2 inches, but I want a page that is, 3 inches, I think it's that one, by 2 inches, right? So it'll do the unit conversions for you as well.
Nice.
And that's all built into this little widget here, which we could probably use in other parts of Inkscape, to be honest, if we wanted unit support. But it's
you
a
don't
good
want to have to hit the tab key every time you want to type in a height with your width.
height
Is
limit.
that
Yeah,
what I'm hearing?
I mean, it's true. It's got its own limitations, right? I click on this, and I
Yeah.
can't just set one of them. I have to set both of them at the same time. So it's a trade off there.
Right.
The other options are, there's a box to resize the page to the objects. That has its own UX issues, because currently it deselects all the objects, so it's limited, I would say, probably to a single page, I would say. The next is the ability to, now some people think that this is to move through the pages, but it's not. If you want to move through the pages, that's what the status bar one is for. Instead, this is to move the pages, right? So you can see how I've moved this one around, like move the order of them. Right, and that's important. If you're exporting to PDF, you want to make sure that the pages are actually in the order that they come out with. Label allows you to give the page a label, and that is also exported to the PDF. So the PDF will actually have those as labels, which is nice. If you have objects, you can actually choose whether those objects are moved around with the page or not, and that's what this one at the end is for. So if I move this around, you can actually see the star moves around with it. If I uncheck this box, now the page moves around and the star does not move with it. These are both valid and useful options to have. It also affects this this option, right? If that's not selected, then moving the page. Oh, this is something you should know, because this is important for UX. If that option isn't selected, then moving the pages will move them in the stack, but it won't actually move them on the canvas. This is a deliberate function for UX, and I'm looking for more feedback for this and how it feels with actual users. But the idea here is, like, say if you had a bunch of small pages that were kind of like dotted around the place, you may want to actually move these pages in the stack, but not actually change their position. Right, and that's what that's for, is so you can just organize them in the stack. And then the final one is the delete button there.
Wait, so if you have the option checked, then it won't move them?
Yeah, if you have the
at
option
all?
checked, then it does move them, right? You can see it, the page actually moves around. If you
Okay.
don't have it checked, then the page moves in the stack, i.e. how it would be exported.
Okay.
But it doesn't move. You can actually see the page name changes from page 5 to page 4 to page 3, right?
Interesting.
And that's there so we can have both options, both the ability to move pages around physically on the canvas and also the ability to move them conceptually in the stack.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to workshop that with users to see how that lands, because there were just too many different workflows that I was trying to work with, and what I really need is data.
Honestly, this is amazing work, Doc. I didn't like when I said multi-page. I didn't envision like half the stuff. Like it's
Adam
crazy
did.
good.
That actually ties into the export dialog we showed you right at the beginning of the stream, which was the batch exporter has multi-page as well, and
yeah, actually, there's something that you might think about doing is when you've got the batch export up,
yeah,
and you've got your pages there. If you could drag those around, move them around there, then that might be a good way to rearrange the pages.
I agree. If this was a page, Okay, so to tell you what, when we do that like multi-page PDF export option in this dialog, we'll do that. Is that fair?
Yeah, yeah, that's perfectly fair.
Okay, add that to the UX ticket. Do all the design.
Will do. I'll assign it to both of us.
Also, I need an option to control how many line column for multi-page. This is from Mia. I'm not entirely sure. There's not really There's not columns and rows right now. This is a naive page implementation. When you import pages, they always are horizontal. When you export them, they're all linear. There's no pages or anything like that.
There is one actually. There is one new feature that kind of plays on the idea of columns, though. I think Tav added margins to the text, the paragraph, so you can actually add your own margins around the text that's flowing in the box.
Okay, so this is a complicated one. So let's talk about this feature. Chris is talking about, and I'm just going to import some lorem ipsum. Hang on, because we'll need a bit of text for this.
We should probably have that as an extension or something.
It already is. I'm just lazy. I'd rather paste it in. Let's turn off. Snap in for a second. So this is a text box.
Yeah.
And what happened was in Inkscape, I'm going to say 0.91, I think, Tav added the SVG2 compliant flowed text options for padding and margin. So they existed, and if you edited the XML in the XML editor, you could actually add the text padding and margins in, but they weren't available on the screen. I came along and added the user interface for this. So this is a piece of flowed text, so it's in a rectangle, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these 3 stars out of this box, and I'm going to use the text menu, text set subtraction frames. I think I only have to select one object. I think they have to be grouped. Let me try that again.
The feature list says that's currently broken, by the way.
Oh, why did nobody report it? Did you just add it to the thing and be like, oh, it's broke? Is it just one object?
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. Are the margins broken too?
No, well, Marin says they are, but I could never repeat. Yeah, the margins are not broken. See them. So there's little handles that you can add.
Yeah. That's
the control.
my experience with it.
What do you have issues with the?
I wasn't trying to cut anything out. I was just mentioning the margins because when you talk about columns on a page, generally you're talking about like how the text flows, right? Down. Margins are columns and rows are for placing shapes and objects and stuff. So you would use potentially a guides for that in combination with margins for your text. That's nice because it saves you having to do all of your margins like manually.
Right.
And you can then like change your margins to like if you got more text than you thought you were going to have, or
okay, this is functioning by the way. It's just not with the default rectangle.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you flow it into an actual rectangle rather than the just dragging a box, then it works. That needs to be fixed, I think. But you can see how this subtraction frame of this star.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right. And it's just a path, right? So it's just.
I love the fact that you can like control the margin around it too.
Yeah. So this is there's two. There's the padding, and these 2 boxes are only visible. These 2 controls are only visible when you're in the text tool and you've selected the text. So you can control this, how much distance is apart from this shape, and also how much padding is here. I think there's a bug because you can see how the text starts appearing in the corners.
Oh yeah.
Yes, no, that's not right.
Forget you saw that.
We said it at the beginning of the stream. Inkscape, it's not perfect. It's just getting better.
I can't wait to play with this. Actually, the whole flowing text around these objects with the margin.
Yes.
Or I don't give a crap at all what that text says, but just slapping a star like that right in the middle of it, or all of a sudden I'm interested
Right.
in what
Okay.
it says.
So I need to show this because I think it's an important distinction. When you're flowing frames, I know there's going to be columns that people want to make. If you have two columns like this and you combine them, right? So you use the path union, right? So this is a union of two objects, and then we're going to group these, all right? And then I'm going to select my text and I'm going to flow it into the first one, right? So flow into frame. Actually, I think I need to unflow it, and then we'll flow it. Unflow, and then I'll select this and flow it. All right, it's because it's a group, ungroup. So if you select two objects that are not grouped, and then you flow it into frame. Oh, and then obviously put them behind. Because they're two objects, they act as two separate columns, right? So the text flows from the top of the first object, and then it continues at the top of the second object and continues all the way down. If you have a combined object like this one, and you flow it into this instead, flow into frame. Yeah. Right, so you can see what's happening here is the text is actually flowing across the entire object, right? Why is the padding so terrible on that? Oh, the padding is opposite. That's hilarious. Okay. So you can see how like the text from this lorem ipsum actually starts here, and then continues here, and then continues onto this next shape. This is deliberate. This is how it's supposed to work, right?
Yeah, no, actually, that's kind of a cool effect.
So you can choose like how the text should flow based upon whether the objects are combined together or whether they are like just two objects that you're flowing into.
No, I can think of a lot of really good uses for that, actually.
Yeah, I think this object is still. Yeah, this object is still.
Sweet. Yes.
Right. So there's a lot
So
more text
nice.
controls. They're still very naive. These are actually SVG2 compliant. These aren't things that Inkscape added, but they are. So when browsers start supporting this SVG2 text flow, this should work. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Okay, so that's
that is sweet.
text tool flowing. So to answer your thing, Chris, why I stopped you, Tav added the actual functionality. I added the controls and I fixed up some of the functions. So you could actually change them. Yeah.
Excellent. Great teamwork.
Yeah,
And
no, I
thanks for
love teamwork.
handling all that. I didn't even know it could do half that stuff. So
it's why we're doing
should
the
do this
stream.
more often.
It's why we're doing the stream, right? Like nobody knows all of the stuff that we've put in because we just did it, and then it's a year later, and we've forgotten all of the stuff that we've done.
We'll need to do like an extended podcast on the lost feature.
The lost features of Inkscape. Like there's, like in the pencil tool, right? So like you can add a shape for triangling stuff. Oh, you can't see that; it's invisible, right? So you can do stuff like this with a triangle. I added a scale button so you can actually resize the friggin' object.
Is it plus and minus?
No, it's because of the shape. The shape has its own natural size as well in that triangle. Oh, and I think there's a fill.
Yeah, your fill is.
Yeah. I would say that LPs have their own particular bugs as well. But it's stuff like that, right? It's a simple addition to just improve it in one small way.
Yeah, that's nice.
And this happens all the time. There's lots of little improvements that happen. Like these dialogues, labels, they're all big because I've been testing these boxes that you can see.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right, and I wanted I needed to measure how big these boxes were when you're actually writing these labels out. So it's a small improvement. It also improves the label for the page as well. Software Lever says, wouldn't it be better to be a setting in the free flow instead of the user having to know if a union group behaves on one? So partially it's a restriction of the SVG format, the way that it is. We can offer the ability to break apart an object and probably control it a little bit better, but this is all tooling that we'd have to add in afterwards, I think. So we're coming up to 10 minutes before 2 hours. I want to make sure that we get all of the features we wanted to talk about in.
Can I mention that the
No,
markers
no,
are actually usable now?
no. I want to.
Oh.
I want to hear from Tim. Sorry, Chris. 1 second.
Hey Tim, explain the markers. if you're looking for something to talk about.
Did you want to pick up on the tiling feature, Martin?
Can you quickly explain tiling? Oh, you mean the dialogue change?
The LPE.
Oh,
yeah,
the LPE. The LPE. Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
I
Look at
don't
Hex-
use
hey,
tiled clones at all, so I'm not really the best person to explain
Is this
that.
how it works?
You're also, Doc. You're also using it wrong. Make
Oh.
one shape.
One shape.
Yep. And make it a hexagon.
Make
because
it a
that's good one.
hexagon because they are the best of guns. Okay.
Yeah. Well, they also don't
that's not a
align
hexagon, that's a
correctly
pentagon.
in a grid usually, right? It's usually a pain in the butt.
Okay,
So
we have a hexagon.
Yeah, so we want like a honeycomb, right?
Okay.
So if you add a tiling LPE to that hexagon,
Okay. Path. Path effects. Plus button.
correct?
The
Yep.
users can't see this, so let's just put on the screen capture quickly so you can see. And we're looking for the tiled clones.
Yep.
Tiling,
I
is it?
think that,
Yeah.
tiling. Yep.
Okay, tiling is on.
Right. Okay. So now in your options, if you can see that you can control all kinds of things, including the rows and columns, like how many there are. But if you go down to the gap and start increasing the gap between or X and Y.
Gap X and gap Y, is that?
Yeah, right. So you can control like how far apart they are, and then if you go for the offset,
Offset.
yep, offset, like how far they're offset.
Oh,
So between those three values, you can actually get a tileable honeycomb that you could add more to. You can see what I'm trying to go for, probably.
like something like that.
Yeah, now increase the gap in X. Oh, there you go.
Oh, I see. I did
Yep.
it. Yeah, there's a couple of options going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, so gap X and gap Y will I control. Yeah,
Ah,
there you go. And now you automatically have something that you can increase the rows and columns for. And that was a pain in the butt to do before.
I wish Cheese
People would
was here
ask
because
like how you could do this, and the best answer I could give them was to make a cropped rectangle over like 6 of them, and then tile that. Oh yeah, plus it's like ultra fun to play with.
yeah, yeah, it is.
But yeah, like look at how cool of like a repeating tile pattern that you could get just by tweaking these headings. Also, or add some rows and columns to it just to show like how easy it is to add some rows and columns. Well,
Don't worry, I'm just playing with the settings. Okay, so you can add more rows and
yeah, like
multiple columns.
so nice. Thank you, Javier.
Javier has been looking after our live path effects for a while now, and he's been adding stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome
and
job.
Adam and him, I
Awesome
think, worked on the user interface.
There is one other feature that might benefit users knowing is the improved trace bitmap.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, yes. It's got auto.
That's used by a lot of people. A lot of people come to Inkscape purely for that function, so that might be worth showcasing.
Okay.
It has automatic preview now.
Let's get an image,
Yeah.
and then we'll use what is it? Path trace bitmap.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a look. No, there we go. Okay, so this is our bitmap image.
Now drag the threshold.
Threshold.
Around. Oh, so nice. Oh my god. You're not having to click update preview the entire time.
Right. So
that alone is pretty great.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I like that. And obviously you can set the edge detection and a bunch of other options. Color quantization. So some of these options are slow, right? So as you drag them around, the update procedure, it takes time to actually finalize, so it won't feel flowing. And part of the reason why programmers didn't want to add the update the automatic update feature was because it was so slow. But with the discussion with the user experience team, it became obvious that it was better to have the auto update and it to be slow than it not have the auto update.
Yeah, because absolutely nothing is as slow as having to click the update preview button every single time you change a value. That is by far the slowest thing.
Well, I think it's really interesting because it's two options of slowness. One is user is slow and has to do work, and the other is computer is slow and user doesn't have to do work. And I think there's a key difference between the two. Even if they take exactly the same amount of time, they're not exactly the same amount of work.
Yeah, it's true. Well, actually, I would say that they don't take the same amount of time. The user is out mousing over it and clicking on the update preview is almost always going to be longer.
Chris, have you never heard of Iron Manning? It's like it's like straw manning, but it's the opposite, right? So it's the opposite of straw manning.
Iron Manning, yes.
Iron Manning is when you assume the best operation. So in the best circumstance that they take exactly the same amount of time, assuming.
I can ruin any conversation.
It would still be better, I think.
You and your logic.
Yeah, Lizard Creative actually says that one of the features of Inkscape is the ability to do trace bitmap and also trace bitmap multiple different algorithms because we're accessing tools that sit behind the scenes. And when tools become available, it's very easy for us to tie in a new tool into the trace bitmap functionality.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I use the fill bucket tool as well. It's kind of a selective trace bitmap tool.
It is that, yeah. It is a bit.
That's actually all it's really good for.
No,
is selective trace bitmap plus. It's nice that actually that is what it does anyway. Even if you're working with vector shapes, it just takes a screen capture of the current.
So it does actually. So one of the things we wanted to do is I don't know if you remember the eraser tool, but Habir and I, but mostly Habir, added a new feature to the eraser tool in 1.1, I think. And there was only two options, which was to cut out from paths and delete objects. We added this clip, right, which means you can paint a clip in. Assuming it's not tiny. Just turn off that. Not big enough? Yeah. So you can paint in a clip, right? So you can just start erasing using a clip. And this object now has a clip mask, which means that I can bring it back, right? I can actually remove that clip, which is a great piece of functionality because it adds in something that a lot of people I don't think realize that this feature is here, but it's an excellent way of using the eraser tool, right?
Yeah. Non-destructively.
Non-destructively, exactly. That's kind of what we want to do with the paint bucket tool, is have a feature that when you paint bucket inside of an area that only contains shapes, right? It only contains paths, that we shouldn't pixelize it and then use the trace bitmap against it. We should just calculate the area. We should just calculate the area based upon the actual shape, the perimeters of the shapes that are surrounding it, and paint bucket that.
That would be better. I must say though, one of the workarounds I found recently is just to have a 4K monitor. The paint bucket tool works a lot better with a 4K monitor.
Right. Yeah.
It's much more precise.
I mean, the paint bucket tool is really cool because it's like this very quick and easy trace bitmap essentially. Yeah. But it would be nice to have it also because like it's a bit like the shape builder tool, but a selective shape builder where you can just like add in things. It's kind of that functionality. If I had more time, I would have liked to have worked on that more for this release, but
there's a lot that we could do with that with the paint bucket tool as well. Like instead of just clicking, you can like click and drag a line so that it takes our range of values and then vectorizes that range of values, which keeps you from having to like multiple clicks all along the thing.
Yeah. So we're at 1 o'clock, which means we're at extra time, and I'm not going to cut this stream just exactly because there's probably stuff to talk about, but I want to let everybody know. Thank you so much for joining us for this stream, and thank you to our guests Tim and Chris for spending so much time with us. If you guys want to shoot off, I fully understand. If you want to come, stay and talk some more, or if chat wants to talk about functions they're curious about, stay a while.
I'll put on another cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
We still haven't talked about the markers dialogue.
Okay.
Maybe it's just a side note, but I actually find it
Okay, let's.
like quite revolutionary.
It is actually
because now
really
the
awesome.
markers are actually useful things instead of some pain in the ass that you don't have to that you have to tweak endlessly to get to work.
Okay, so let's talk me through it. Here's a line.
Okay, yeah, right. So you're going to go to stroke style, I believe.
Stroke
Style tab. That's right.
Yep.
And you see those markers thing. You're probably familiar with those, right? But now when you click on it, look at that. I mean, how beautiful is that? First of all, look at all those options. You know what wasn't there last time? All those options. Yeah, so you can click on any of those, but not only can you select and I control the size there. You'll notice at the very bottom of the edit on canvas thing, which lets you manually resize them to your heart's content right there on the canvas. It's so good. I love it. I should probably explain why I love this so much. I'm writing a book on Inkscape, and I've been using these arrows for everything. And because it just saves so much time, like pointing things out. And one of the constant, really terrible things is that the stroke used, or the markers were automatically scaled by the stroke.
Yes.
But so you would have to scroll down this massive list of arrows to try and find the one that was small enough to be large enough for your stroke, right? Otherwise, if your stroke is too large, or your arrowheads are giant and it looks cartoony and terrible. But with this, you can just make them how you want them to be on the canvas. So yeah, that's going to be a major time saver for me from now on, and I'm really excited about that. It's also cool that you can, I guess you move them along the line as well. That's neat.
Yeah, so there's offsets and stuff. So you can see, I put a 7 offset in there, right? So you can actually just.
That solves a couple.
So it's not along the line. Look, it's just offset from the thing. So you can actually. Right. So if you wanted a square that was, I imagine it offset in the opposite direction, right? So it was like slightly off the end.
Oh, that's cool.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can imagine doing it for the circles. So the circles like 10, probably the other way around.
I like that.
Right. That's so if I wanted them outside of the where the nodes are, right, having that.
Guys, I'm going to duck out if you don't mind. I've got some things to do with the vectors team.
Oh, yep. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Brilliant. This has been really awesome, and I hope everyone in the chat has enjoyed it. I certainly have.
Oh,
so
yeah, me too.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Okay. This is where my transition. There we go. I did actually prepare transitions for people dropping out.
Yes.
Can you mask around the marker, like add some negative space? That'd be really neat. I don't think so, but maybe I need to see. Yeah, so I believe the stroke width still does affect the markers, but the difference is that you can readjust the size.
Yeah.
Right. So if you wanted to readjust the size so it's smaller, then you can, and it's this extra control. The marker definition is all still based around the stroke width, though.
And for the longest time, there has been no way to do that. Like no good way to do that, except for like maybe making your own custom markers.
Right, editing
if your arrowhead was just a little bit too small, you just had to ignore that fact.
Yes, we still do have some bugs, some user experience problems, I would say, in that it's currently not possible to set the fill of this square, right? So the fill of this square is tracking the fill of the object, which is problematic because like I don't want that. I want the square to be filled with some other color, right?
Yeah, that's a difficult UX problem though.
Yeah, it is.
'Cause you basically have to you basically have to make it. I don't know. I don't even know how you would do that.
Well,
How
look,
would you work?
I'll show you
How
how
would
you
you
do
work?
it in the XML, right? And then you can think about it, right? So in the XML editor, you would go into defs. Oh my god, there's a lot of stuff here. So
Yeah.
probably this is the razor wire one. This is the arrow 2.
Rarely would I go to the
This is the
XML
square.
editor for clarification
No, no,
on
no.
things.
I'm showing you the how it's done physically, right? So here is the style for this square, and it says the fill is
Okay.
context fill, the stroke is context stroke. Context fill, it means whatever the fill of the object is, and context
Object
stroke means
is.
whatever the stroke of the object is. So if I change fill to red, enter. Did I do that right? Yes.
Yeah.
So you can see how now the square is
So, I mean, basically, what you would need to do is add a little like or a fill in stroke dialog. No, probably. Well, do you want to change the fill and the stroke for the markers, or do you want the stroke? I guess it would. So hard. I am just happy that the stroke colors the markers because that saves time, and that's usually what you want anyway.
yeah. I was the one that added that the context fill and context stroke in.
Yeah.
No, this is another example where Tav added the actual functionality and I added the interface. So they would do something because he added the SVG 2.0 compliant context fill and context stroke options, and then I added it into. What I did is I actually edited all of the markers and made sure that we were testing the context fill and context stroke.
Nice. No, great job.
And it was
Yeah,
my
I mean, there may be more work to do, but I'm like super satisfied with the work that's been done.
Yeah,
It
Mykov
is
actually did the
making my life
interface.
easier.
I should point that out. Mykov did this pop up. If you see a pop
Oh
up,
yeah.
it's probably Mykov that did it.
Okay. Awesome. Now that guy's magic too.
He's
I must
yeah
say.
yeah he does some amazing stuff.
Is that a barbed wire marker?
It is a
Is that
pop
what that
marker. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
is? It's razor wire.
it's razor wire. Razor wire. Yeah. I mean, it looks like little bow ties. You know, just
For,
giving some style.
for your
some class.
prison yard sales.
Thank you, Ian Barrow, for joining us. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Chris?
Oh, let's see what else. I mean, probably. Let's have a look at the actual release. Gradient edit, export dialog, color palette, snapping, popover, align and distribute dialogues.
I'll just do a quick one, which is I added the ability to do splitting. So, which is, let's say you have these 3 objects, right? Let's just get rid of that one.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Yeah, yeah.
So you've got this negative
yes,
space and
I know
this positive space, and this is one object, right? This is one path with these things. And
I have to make a.
now you have the ability to. So if you use break apart, what would happen was you create 3 objects with this center, which is not great. What I did was I added this split path, and what that does is it separates them into 2 objects, right? Because they're separated objects. This isn't just useful for users in the menu; it's also useful for our code internally if we want to intend to be operating.
Did I trade you graphics for that? I could have sworn that I might have done.
You may have. Chris may have commissioned this work, yes, with a barter.
Yeah. No, yeah, and actually, this is something that on the forums everybody's asking all the time. Is like,
Yeah.
can I just break apart the letters, in my
Exactly.
in
Yeah.
this word here without having all the shapes go crazy, all
Yeah.
the cutouts of the shapes go crazy.
I mean, you could already in 1.1. I added the ability to copy and paste the nodes themselves, so you can actually
Yes.
select the nodes, which went a long way towards fixing that. but it wasn't quite so automatic, and it wasn't certainly available in the code because there's a lot of operations we might want to do in the code that the split path would actually be quite useful for. The custom dash pattern, Eliza Creative says, which is worth having a look at. So custom, and then being able to set the pattern here.
So good.
Right, this didn't exist before.
Nope.
You had to edit the XML if you wanted this pattern.
Yeah, you can make some really stylish looking icons and illustrations with that.
It's such a simple one too. It's just a text box.
Yeah, it's just a text box.
Yeah.
But that's enough, you know. You don't need any more than that, really.
Yeah, a little bit of thing. So Dante asks what is SVG2? SVG2 is the second iteration of the SVG specification that was started by the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C. They have stalled the process. Generally, what should happen is that the process should complete until SVG 2.0 is out of draft phase and web browsers are supporting it. Inkscape has always been at the forefront of supporting SVG, the latest SVG. And in fact, we supported SVG 1.2, which was never published, and we got caught out. And then we support SVG 2, lots of functionality like mesh gradients and what's the other stuff, like the text. This order, paint order, all that stuff is SVG2, which means that if you load these SVGs in a web browser, these web browsers won't render them correctly because they don't support SVG2 yet. But the more SVGs that exist, the more SVGs you create and put online, they will see those features. Apparently all the web browsers are tracking the functionality that their web browsers see. The more of mesh gradients they see live in the wild, as they say, the more likely they are to support it. So publish a ton of things, please, with mesh gradients and flowed text.
Yeah, that's the thing. If these companies see that people are actually using them,
they'll invest the money. Yeah.
They'll need to support it because then, you know.
Do we have to reinstall with every new release? The answer to that is probably. There is a way to use Inkscape without installing it, using an app image if you're on Linux, and I think using the 7Z download if you're on Windows. I think on Mac you have to install it though. Any of the other mechanisms, the MSI, the EXE, the Windows Store, the PPA, the Debian package, the Fedora package, you all have to reinstall them each time because they like to keep track of their versions and keep themselves up to date. Software Livre says tabs would be neat. We got tabs. Look, there's tabs here. He means tabbed canvases. Why not Inkscape make different name extensions for working the document stick to name SVG? I think Mia is saying, why do we not have more extensions to the SVG?
Yeah, no, actually, I think it's the SVG. The file is a .svg, even though it is different than the SVG that is viewable on a web page. Maybe.
Yeah. One of the things that we're hoping to do is in the file saved dialog, we currently have a drop down that says Inkscape SVG and plain SVG and compressed SVG. Those are, I'm going to go with lies to a degree, because what's really needed there is there's Inkscape SVG that has our stuff in it, and then there's plain SVG 1.1 and then plain SVG 2. And those need to be separate objects, separate processes, because there's a little checkbox that says export as SVG 1.1 per settings in the preference dialog. That's a checkbox, and even if you're you can check that even if you're saving to a PDF file, which is a bit mad. What does that matter to a PDF, right? Whether it's SVG2 or not. And the conversion stuff that it goes through to try and make it compatible is tricky and not consistent.
One thing that we could go over is the gradient dialog.
We did that at the beginning.
Did we?
Yeah. Yeah, we did the gradient dialog.
But did you try and add some stops and other things like that?
Okay,
Because
you can double click on
it
the
works
thing.
a bit differently than it did before.
Oh.
So there are plus and minus buttons at the bottom.
Yep.
Yep, that will actually add a stop perfectly or in between the two stops that are selected, or the one stop that is selected, and the next one
I see.
down the lane. So if you want one stop in between the blue and the yellow now, all you do is click the plus, and it will average those colors too, which is
Ooh.
super nice.
And it averages them across the color space.
Yeah,
So if I'm
yeah.
using RGB, it'll be a different situation, right?
I believe that it will. Actually, I thought the value stayed the same, but maybe not.
Oh, well.
But also the fact that the gradient, or by the gradient bar, there is this little drop down on the left-hand side.
This one?
Yep, which shows all of your gradients, and there's a plus and minus button on that one too, so you can plus to copy your current gradient. This is really nice if you have something that you've shaded already.
Yeah.
But you want to see it in a different color gradient. You can actually just press that plus and then copy and switch gradients directly from that menu.
Right.
So you can switch back and forth from your black and white version to your color version, for example, which I thought was really a great addition, actually.
I thought we had a display mode for that. No? Outline filters.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you're exporting,
Oh,
like if
you can export it to black and white. Yeah. Although you can, we have a PNG option for grayscale, which is now no longer the default.
no more 2-bit PNGs.
No, but 2-bit PNGs. For context, chat, I was fixing some stuff and with the export dialog, and by accidentally made the PNG default export 2-bit, which meant black,
which is black
and white, not grayscale, black and white.
Causing me to whinge like a rusty gate.
And Chris was just poking. No, what's wrong? It's broke. It's broke. What's wrong? Yes, that's fixed. I think we're probably coming up to the edge here of what we're doing.
Yeah, actually, I think that was the last major thing that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, markers, custom dash patterns, layers. There's some font editing stuff, but I really don't know enough font editing for it to matter. The swatches improvements, but I don't know enough about them either.
Did you actually? We didn't show them the document properties. Is that something that comes up? Does that come up on your screencast? If you open up the document?
It will if I make it visible. Our videos will be slightly off center, but that's okay. Preferences. Okay. Was it preferences? No, it's the document.
Yeah, document
properties. Yeah.
So filed document properties.
Yeah. So it's this particular screen here that's changed.
Yeah, it's not working. I can't see it.
Oh, no, it's on the screen.
Yeah,
it's not, you
that's a shame.
Can't see it, but
a lot of work has been done on that too. It's got it's a quality of life improvement there for people having to navigate everything. It has a preview and you can change the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't see what he's doing right now, but
no, they can't. Chris, you can't see it. They can.
Okay,
see it.
well, I can't. Oh, they can see it.
They can see it. Yes, it is on the screen.
Okay, well, good. That's all that matters then. Isn't it nice, folks? This thing
Isn't it nice? Isn't it yeah, it is nice. Yeah, so I just press the checkerboard checkbox and resize to content and formatting and yeah. So partially this was a collab between me and Mykov, because I added the multi-page support and completely broke the original dialogue. Sort of like, get out of my way, I'm doing multi-page stuff here. And so Mykov went back in and did all of the extra work necessary to get that working, I would say.
Yep. So I thought that was worth a mention because I've been enjoying that muchly as well. So thank you for that.
Yep. Let's see.
Let's see.
There is more customized theming options and cursors and icons And
the arrange dialog is now built into the alignment dialog as well.
yes, yeah, we moved
There
the
is no more arrange dialog.
yeah.
It's gone entirely, and put as tabs in the alignment
Yep.
dialog. So if you're looking for them, they're there. Also, I think a little bit of UX stuff has been done in those dialogs as well.
Oh yeah,
It just looks nicer.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of
I
a lot
think
of tweaks.
yeah, I think I think most of the functionality is the same, but it just looks amazing.
Yeah. Well,
Well done.
let's hope. Quickly, Chris. Let's have a think about what 1.3 will look like because we're about to wrap this stream up. What is your
Already,
hope and dream for 1.3?
I just want a big red button on my screen that says "Do it," and then I want to hit that button, and then it just does whatever I'm thinking of.
It does all my work without me even asking. To quote
It has to be a nice looking
Weird Al
button, of course.
Yankovic,
That it can't be
has to be
it can't
a
be
pretty button.
just be a circle. It's got to have some nice shading. And
Okay.
no, actually, I think if we can manage to get the shape builder stuff in there, that's going to make a lot of people really happy.
Yeah.
I have never had a use for a shape builder because I know all the Boolean hotkeys. So as
Yep.
soon as I think it, it's already done.
Yeah, because it's built
because
in.
of
Right?
muscle memory
Yeah.
and everything.
There are
Actually, fun
circumstances
fact, that's
when
one of the reasons why I switched to Inkscape from Illustrator in the first place, because to this day they still don't have any hotkeys for the Boolean operations. And once you've had that, it's just like
you once you've had hotkeys, you can never go back.
well, yeah. Well, I mean, I or you can change my mind with the shape builder. Maybe it's just amazingly awesome, and
Yeah, if you're interested in
yeah,
that, let us know because like finishing that off, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. It needs design. It needs a UX/design person to be involved.
okay.
I think.
So we don't
So yeah.
so we don't need a Kickstarter for that one.
Probably not. Somebody else's work. I wouldn't feel comfortable finishing somebody else's work with a Kickstart starter, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, that's true. I guess so. Yeah, meh.
I mean, work is work. It's true, but like, if I
We
was
can't
to,
use it right now, so it's one of those things. Also, all of the it's not like they're paying you for the whole of the feature, right? You're not claiming that you made the whole thing.
yeah, but it can be easily confused, and it's just easier to say, "Oh, I'll do the CMYK and then fundraise on that," or "I'll do the connector tool." Right, I finish the connector tool because I think the connector tool is actually more business stuff. So if I can get a few
Oh, that's
businesses
true.
involved,
Also, you did most of that work, didn't you?
and I did all that work already. Yeah, so it's
Okay.
one of those things where it's just easier to be like, I did this work, I want to continue this work, or I'm going to do this work, and so on. But yeah, those are the things that I'm curious about doing. I'm curious about investigating CMYK. I don't think it's going to be successful, but I'll give it a go. See what Mark thinks. I've read Bryce's notes on it. They seem hideously complicated. There's a couple of things that those notes say that Inkscape does that I know it doesn't. So I think we've got regressions in our color spec. There's a bunch of code clean up. Mir says OpenGL renderer. So we have a contributor called PBS who's been doing an awful lot of great work fixing memory leaks, fixing rendering problems, refining a lot of the stuff. They have an OpenGL branch which is very promising, and we are very excited to try that out. It looks like GTK4 though is going to be the target because there are too many problems with GTK3 OpenGL, which is going to stop us from doing that.
Oh, there you go. That's something that we need to do for 1.3 is switch to GTK4.
Oh, you want to do that in
I'd be
one
so
release, do
happy.
you? So yeah, we've had this discussion with the developer team because GTK4 is a lot of work, and if we decided to do it this cycle, it would be 2 years before we had a release minimum. Right? We'd break it so thoroughly, and dev
How does that
releases
work?
wouldn't
Do
be
you
functional.
do you have to basically fork Inkscape and make like a whole different branch
Well,
to work on
the different branch is
GTK4?
master, right? The different branch is master. So we'd start with GTK4 stuff. There are some things we can do GTK3 and 4, right? They're compatible, But there is a point at which you make the call. You're like, we're doing GTK4, and you simply just got to break Inkscape, and then like claw back the functionality that's gone away.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. But like you would make that call, right? You would make that call about whether you want to do it in this cycle. Because if you're going to do it in one cycle, then you can just break it straight away, get it over with, and like get all the developers on the same page. Well, this is what we're doing. But if
Yeah.
you're not,
What
if
did
you,
they decide? Or I guess the decision was not to break it.
the decision was not necessarily to break it for 1.3, no, because there's still more work we can do for that's compatible with both. But it means we
Okay.
probably won't get OpenGL for 1.3, which is unfortunate. But maybe we can. I mean, maybe there's a whole bunch of patches that will steal from GIMP, because GIMP have a bunch of stuff. Mostly it's stuff like Mac OS that makes it harder. But,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. But that would be the main benefit, at least. I mean, or I don't have to care because I use Linux, but I do have to hear people complain
We do. You do have to
from
care if
Mac OS and Windows.
we do have to care if you can't get GL accelerated canvas because it doesn't work in macOS at all, right? That's not
So
enough.
GTK4 is supposed to fix that.
GTK4 is GL, like the whole interface is GL. So
Okay.
you're not fighting Cairo and fighting renderers and all other stuff in order to do it. It's all kind of built in, from what I understand.
Excellent. Well, that sounds great.
So yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to look forward to. But in the meantime, all of you lovely users who have joined us for this stream will be able to use Inkscape 1.2 in the next few weeks. And if you are available to test the beta, please do get involved. It's going to be really great to make sure that we clean up the last few bugs before the release with your help. And yeah, thank you all very much. You want to say goodbye, Chris?
Bye, Chris.
Very good.
Sorry, that's all I got.
Yeah, it's fine.
Have fun using Inkscape, and
Yeah.
yeah, let us know what you think.
Absolutely.